All right, let's get to the meat of this course, and we're going to talk about what actually goes into a media kit. Now, there are quite a few different things, and I'm going to list pretty much everything that should be in a relatively big media kit, but depending on where you are in your social media journey, depending on what kind of industry and kind of niche you're in, you might skim some sections, and maybe there will be a section that you would add that I have not mentioned because it's very, very specific to your industry. So keep that in mind. I'm also going to be showing some samples from my media kit, and I want to make sure that you understand these are for illustration purposes only. I really don't want you to try to copy any parts of my media kit, or as you're going to be googling other media kits around, please don't copy anyone else's. Yes, you can get a general idea of design and colors and so forth, but just like your social media journey should be unique, your social media kit should be unique as well. You also might want to, think about what brands you're going to be talking to, right? You could be in a colorful industry like, children toys, for example, but the brands you're going to be dealing with might be very conservative. So you want to keep a balance between what your social media project is all about and what they're all about. Try to visit their corporate websites, try to visit their PR news websites, and see how they represent themselves. Are they conservative? Are they playful? So try to keep a balance between what you're all about and what they're all about, because you want to appeal to them, so you kind of literally speak their language. So but I can't emphasize enough, please don't copy anyone else's media kits on really anything if you are going to be a successful social media influencer. All right, let's get started. Of course, we're going to start with the cover page. And yes, the brands a lot of times will judge the book by its cover, so it's important that your cover page is, simple, but at the same time professional. Make sure when they look at it, they go like, oh, okay, well, this is something that we're interested in, moving forward and seeing the second and third page. Mine, for example, is pretty conservative. I'm in the automobile industry, so it's pretty conservative. I got a Tesla in the background there, and just kind of says Media Kit, as you can see in my logo. It's actually not, this is basically half of the page because I'm presenting it horizontally, but you'll be able to see the picture and a little bit of text below there, but this is kind of what I'm working with here. So make sure that to use, remember we talked about the being very consistent with your graphics. This is one of those places. When they look at your channel or they look at your blog and look at your banners and headers, they want to make sure that they know that they're looking at something that's produced within the same color scheme, within the same design as everyone else, as everything else in your social media universe. So make sure to be consistent with that. Now let's move on to the second page, which really should be an overview. This is where you kind of want to tell them what you're all about. And there are different sections there as well. So here's mine where I kind of present sort of the screenshots from the general segments that I do. As you can see, I do live news, I do on location reporting, I review cars, and I also have interviews with some of the executives. So overall, just by looking at these four pictures, you can get a pretty good idea of what my channel is all about. Yes, you can add a few words about your channel as well, but make sure that whatever it is that you choose to do with yours, it's easy to understand and easy to see that the quality of your work. So quick glances is what they're going to do. So visual representation is usually the best. So try to pick a little bit of everything, kind of a chipotle of the Subway, if you will, of your social media project. All right, let's move on to the next one. And of course, they want to know who you are. Your YouTube channel or your blog, it's a thing. It's a business. But they also want to know who it is behind that business. It of course depends how involved you are. Are you the face of your YouTube channel or your blog or your Instagram account? If yes, obviously that's even more important. If not, well, then there is a little bit of a mystery, and you want to tell them a little bit about yourself, but make sure to keep it short. As you can see here, I just have a picture of myself and enough text where they can find out the most important information about you, but not enough to overwhelm them and say, oh, whoa, That is way too much. I don't want to read through this. So, and you don't have to use one picture. You can use a few pictures. You can use more or less text. But again, make sure that's unique to you. All right, let's move on to the next one. And this is probably the most important one because this is where you're going to be talking about, your viewership, your audience. And this is what they essentially want to know. A brand wants to know, is the audience that you have, big enough for them to deal with you, or are they the same demo that they are trying to target? So this is important to do that. And of course, the first, like I mentioned, it's a demo, the demographics. They're usually standard categories. Again, this is mine. Age, that's important. Gender, and of course location. If you want to break it down by countries, that's fine. If you want to break it down by states, it depends on which social media platform you've picked. If you have a blog or Google Analytics, it will help you as well if you're running a website. In some cases, especially with podcasts, and I know we talked about it in a different class, it's much harder to get demographics, and that's why I'm not a big fan of those platforms. It also, let's talk about Instagram a little bit, because if you have a personal account, yes, you can grow faster, but you don't have access to this type of stats. So I would recommend that you switch to a business account, which is a little bit harder to grow because they're trying to get more money out of you, knowing that you are running a business and you're probably selling a product or a service, but you will have access to stats, and it's extremely important, as you know, because these same stats will go into your brand proposals. And I have a different course for that, but don't forget, a lot of this stuff you will actually gonna have to once again repeat to them when you're proposing some sort of sponsorship or collaboration. All right, the next one is your eyeball stats, and this could be it. This could be the only number they even want to know from you. So make sure this is good. Now here's mine. They don't have to look fancy, by the way. If you want to get fancy with it, that's great. Mine are pretty simple. I have different charts that I have in my media kit, but this is the most important one, and these are views, right? Now, what they want to see here is growth, obviously. Now, as you can see, I broke this down by quarters, not by days, not by month, by quarters, because I've noticed that because I do news and I catch trends, and a lot of times I miss trends, my stats just go kind of erratically like this. It's not really a smooth line. So in order to represent this better, and in order to kind of show a better growth and much smoother growth, I've broken this down into quarters. Now, I've been doing this for a while, so I can actually afford, having a relatively quite a few dots in my chart. For quarters. If you're starting out, that's probably not a luxury you have. But nevertheless, my point is, try to massage the way you represent your statistics. And again, it's all about trending up. It's all about making sure they understand that you're going to be growing. A lot of times, brands will pick a smaller YouTube or a smaller social media influencer because they believe that person will grow in the future, and they want to sometimes help you grow with them because they will end up being a friendly brand, and they will be the first ones that you'll be working with, and essentially they're taking you out from the running to maybe working with the competition. So make sure that you show growth. It's extremely, extremely important. Other social media stats. Now, I know we've talked in different courses that yes, you need to concentrate on one social media platform when you're launching your project. But if you've been around for a while, and even a little bit from the very beginning, you want to at least be present on other social media platforms. You obviously just want to list the ones that you have some presence on. If you're not, then this is one of those things that you don't put in a media kit. I very recently put mine in there. So as you can see, I actually ended up realizing, I have 55,000 followers altogether. And by the way, see, it says Facebook right here, 35,000. Now, this is mainly in my Facebook group, but because I'm the only admin, I'm the owner of the Facebook groups. Actually, I have a couple where I pretty much control the content. I'm the host of that group, so I put it in as the Facebook following. As a matter of fact, having a Facebook group is better than having a Facebook page, because when you post something on your Facebook page, your reach is not as good, and obviously the engagement is not as good as it is in your group. So I've realized that I have them these this relatively decent stats now, and unfortunately LinkedIn is cut off a little bit, but I have overall 55,000 followers. I thought it was enough, and you can even have 5 or 10,000 followers, and that's enough to put it in there. But if you are not comfortable with maybe a smaller number, then just don't put it in. That's perfectly fine. Again, it's up to you to pick and choose. If this is not a highlight you want to them to see and know about you, then it's perfectly fine. You're not really hiding. They can always ask, and you can say, you know what, I don't really have much of a presence on other social media platforms, but I'm working on it, right? As long as you're working on something, as long as you're growing and getting better, they will be satisfied with that answer. Now, the last one is projections. And again, I don't want to say last one, last but not least, I guess, as they say, because in your industry, you might actually present different types of stats that are more important specifically for that niche than in any other niche. So I cannot guess those. So make sure that if there are some, make sure to find out what they are, make sure to put it in your media kit. Now, projections is something that, it's a funny thing. Obviously, you want to show growth. You want to show and tell them, hey, this is what I predict my views, my followers, and so forth are going to be all about. Now, what you want to do is this is a funny thing, right? Because you can massage it one way or another. You don't want to make your projections way out there when they're going to be like, yeah, no, you're not going to get there, right? You also don't want to project something that's very flat. They're going to say, wow, this guy could project, whatever essentially he wants because he's predicting the future. And even he doesn't believe in himself or herself when he's doing it. So you kind of want to base on what that curve, remember the stats that I showed you, that would be for the views. You kind of want to, continue drawing that line and see where you're going to be at by the end of the year, and that would probably be a good estimation of what your projections should be. Now, in my case, I have to say, it is a little bit, now these are what subscribers for YouTube. These are a little bit on the more optimistic side. As you can see, I started this year with 30,000 subscribers, and it's halfway through, and I'm a little over 40. So probably 50 or 60,000 subscribers is where I'm going to end up. But at the same time, things have happened. If you think about my growth, I usually double the number of subscribers every half a year. So technically, I could get very close. If it's getting closer to the end of the year and I know I'm not going to get there, I will lower that projection number as well because I don't want to look silly. I definitely like to make sure that the promises that I make are at least very realistic at the time when I'm making them. So that's pretty important as well. Let's move on to the next section because we're now done with stats, but make sure that your stats section is on point. And a lot of times, if you notice that they're asking for something else, after you send them a media kit, you wanna add that section to your stats pages, or just one page maybe you have in the very beginning, so they don't have to ask, so they know that that this is important to them. So you're speaking the same language. Okay, so best of. This is something that you could only be in operation for a few months, but you already should have something that you're proud of. So go ahead and do it. Put your best work in there because they want to see the variety. They want to see what kind of quality work you can produce, because not all of your pieces, not all of your posts, not all of your content is going to be, they're not all going to be winners. But the winners that you do have, you want to make sure that you showcase. In my case, I have quite a few impressive guests that I've had on my show throughout the years. As you can see, CEOs of automotive companies, congressmen and a congresswoman. This page actually goes all the way to the bottom. In my industry, all these people are pretty important. The fact that I was able to get them on my show is a big deal. Now, I have a different course on how to do that, but the fact that they decided to give me their time, their PR people decided it was worth coming on my show and talking to me, kind of gives them an idea, saying, well, if all these people came on this on his show, then maybe we should give it a shot as well. So essentially here I'm telling the brand that, hey, if they worked with me, you should as well. But in your case, you can represent your success, your best of, in any way you want. I already showed you this part of my media kit. Now, for me, this was an overview, but this could also be looked at as the best of, because I am showcasing the 4 categories that I have on my channel, and 4 types of videos that I make on my channel. As you can see, all of them are taken from relatively important events and locations. And my guest is Henrik Fisker, which is one of the biggest names in my industry. So could be an overview, but could be also the best of. And of course, brands, love to see what the ceiling is for you in your creativity in your content. All right, let's move on to showcasing partners. Now, in my case, the previous page, or the best of page, all of these people I've interviewed, is also kind of showcasing my partners. That could be 2 in 1, but I could have also, and I decided not to make the media kit too long. And maybe we haven't talked about it, much like with a resume, make sure to keep it to, 5-6 pages at the most, depending on how much content you're jamming in each page. If you're putting a lot of content, which you really shouldn't, then it only should be 1, 2, 3 pages. If you're kind of dumping something very just kind of a singular on one page, yeah, then it can go to 4, 5, 6 pages. That's perfectly fine. So in my case, I thought it would make my media kit a little bit too long. So I didn't specifically list all of the brands that I've worked with, but the previous one, the list of those people who are mainly CEOs of this automotive companies, kind of do the job. But in your case, you can split them, or you just have the list of partners, because you could have literally an email from a certain brand replying to your question, and as long as you feel like there is some sort of working relationship there, without stretching it too much, hey, that means that you've worked with a brand and you can put it in your media kit. Testimonials. Now, this one is tricky as well, because your customers could be viewers, your customers could be brands. So depending on what type of niche you are, you might want to pick and choose which testimonials you include, if any. Now, in my case, I've actually have not included testimonials in my media kit. I've included a few in my brand proposal. So this is what it looks like, because this is one of my longest sponsors that have been sponsoring not just my YouTube channel, but they've been sponsoring me even before that. I just had a Facebook group before that, so they were sponsors there. This is from their president that essentially tells other brands that they should do business with me. So this is important for my brand proposal. But this is what a testimonial looks like. There are different, of course, formats and ways how to present it. It should be up to you to decide if you want to include a testimonial or a few of them in your media kit. Now, again, remember how we talked about if you're just starting out and you may not have all of these things to showcase, and stats and guests and brands that you work with, then testimonials is something that's much easier to get. So put them in there. But once you start gaining all of that cool stuff that you can replace it with, then testimonials are just going to be dropped. Contact information. Now, I can't believe I'm mentioning this, but after viewing your media kit, the brand might want to contact you. Now, of course, you'll say, but Alex, I've emailed them this, or, we talked on the phone. Of course, they have my contact information. First of all, don't flatter yourself. All right, they might have, but your email gotten lost and whatever. They could be looking at it weeks after you send it to them. They might have passed it to another team that doesn't have your contact information. So make sure that they have it. Make sure that it's super easy to find. As you can see, this is the bottom of pretty much every page that I have, and you see my YouTube channel there, URL, so they know exactly where to find me, my website, my email address, and my phone number. So this is very important, because why do it? Why do it at all if you're going to make it difficult for them to find you and work with you? So I would suggest that, just like my media kit, your media kit, this is where I want you to copy me, that you have your contact information on every single page. All right, so now let's go over some don'ts, because it's important to put stuff in, and it's important to do quite a few different things, but it's also important not to do some things. There's only 3, so let's go over them. The first one is, don't include your advertisement rates. Don't forget, this is a media kit. Yes, it usually goes to a brand that you want to eventually sponsor you, but a lot of times it will also go to a PR person who's just interested in maybe organizing an interview with you, or maybe sending you to an event to cover their product or service. They're completely not interested into rates. As a matter of fact, if you have rates in your media kit, they will assume that you want to charge them for working with you, which is outrageous, and it will run away and will never reply to you most likely. So please don't include any rates. Of course, if it's a brand proposal, absolutely, but not in your media kit. Make sure none of the dollar signs are there. Now, another thing what you should do is make sure that the text is minimal. What you don't want to do is to have a lot of text for them to read. They are busy people. Nobody even wants to read anymore. I'm sure you can relate, because when you're aware of so many emails and texts and just so much information that's just kind of falling down on you, especially when you are, in a social media world, you want to make sure that your media kit as visual as possible. And if you do have some parts where you need to, have some text, make sure it's very little. Testimonials is one of them, and about yourself or about your channel, about your social media project is the other one. But make sure that those are short, but at the same time, they're optional. A lot of times, just the fact that you have the testimonials, or you have some information to introduce yourself to the brand, a lot of times they're just satisfied seeing that it's there. They're not necessarily going to read it. But if they are going to read it, make sure that it doesn't bore them to death, or they go like, whoa, I do not have time to read this. So I wanted to know about this person, but it's just too much. Want to make sure to keep the text to the minimum. And last one, please do not lie. Now, we've talked about the stats, right? And yes, when you do projections, it's easy to say, I will be huge by the end of the year. Don't do that. And I know you're not lying, because nobody can predict the future, but be reasonable. And definitely, please don't lie when you're putting anything else in your media kit. This is pretty much like writing on a resume. If you're trying to establish a contact with a brand and they catch you in a lie, you're dead to them. Nobody wants to deal with somebody who's starting a relationship with dishonesty. Now, generally speaking, just my personal philosophy, I just don't lie in business or personal life. It's just so much easier to sleep at night. But if we're just going to limit this advice to a media kit, please don't lie in your media kit. So this is pretty much it. We've gone through all of the sections that I believe are the most important to have in the media kit. I can't emphasize enough that, don't forget, it is a very different for different niches and hyper niches in these industries, and your personality and how much experience you have and how long you've been doing this. It is definitely up to you to figure out what goes in there. And a lot of times, if you make a friend and who is a PR person, or maybe PR person in a different in your previous job, or your current job, if you are still not a full-time social media influencer, go pick their brains. Go and say, hey, listen, here's the industry I'm in, and hopefully they're in the same industry, but not still take their advice, at least get their opinion on this. Say, yeah, listen, I'm putting together a media kit. This is what I got so far. Don't ask them for the advice from the very beginning, like when you have nothing. Okay, you have something to show, and tell me, like, well, what would you think? And get that advice. Again, I'd really, really prefer if you get it from somebody in the same industry, because they will tell you, listen, this is great, this is not great, these numbers make no sense, we don't want to hear about these numbers, but we definitely want to hear the numbers that you're missing right here. So make sure and go get it, and make sure it's a part of your media kit. As you become a part of the industry that you're going to be creating your social media project, and or already are in one, you will probably have a few friends that will be able to help you out because they want you to succeed. They want you to be around. It's sort of in their selfish interest as well. If they believe they're benefiting from working with you, if you're getting their word out, of course they want you to succeed. They want you to work with other brands as well. So all together, they're all going to be sponsoring your success and sharing your audience. So it's in their best interest as well. This is the most important part of this course. So if you have to watch it again, if you have to maybe kind of dig into some of the stats and some of the sections here, please don't skip anything that I mentioned just because you don't think it's important. Have it in there. have it reviewed by someone, and they will tell you if it's not important. The only thing that I would advise against is, again, I know repeating it myself over and over again, make sure it's not boring, make sure it's not too long, make sure there's not too much stuff to read where they're just going to skip over your resume slash media kit. All right. This should take a while. This should definitely take a while. We're going to talk for you to make. I'm saying once you watch this part of the course, that you have some work to do. In the next few sections of this course, we're going to talk about the format and how to actually get this done. I fully realize you are not most likely a graphics designer, so we're going to talk about that in the next few sections. But I'm glad we got this done. So let's move on.